Graham Fletcher stood still in the cramped employee locker room of Store No. 9, one of 16 fast-casual restaurants his father had painstakingly built from the ground up. No one recognized him. Today he wasn't the CEO people respected from afar. Today he was simply Greg, a temp in a wrinkled polo shirt, faded khakis, and a flimsy plastic name tag dangling from his chest. A pair of discount eyeglasses, a scruffy unshaved beard, and worn-out sneakers completed the disguise. This particular location had never warranted a personal visit before. Everything had always run well enough. Graham had trusted his district managers to keep the engines running, and for 5 years, since the day he buried his father and took the reins of the company, they had done just that. The brand grew, the numbers climbed. He kept his distance and focused on expansion. But lately, Store No. 9 had been slipping. Customer reviews plummeted. Long wait times, sticky counters, disengaged staff. The kind of feedback that slowly corrodes a company's soul. Oddly enough, the internal reports painted a rosier picture. Nothing serious, they said. Graham knew better. Something was being buried, and he wasn't about to let his father's legacy rot from the inside out. So he showed up. No warning, no ceremony. Just another temp, sent by the agency they used to cover short-staffed shifts. He entered through the back door, unnoticed. No one in that building could have guessed that the man standing beside them had once been the pudgy kid sitting by the fryer, watching his father flip burgers with pride and precision. And now, here he was, starting over under fluorescent lights, stripped of every ounce of authority, earning minimum wage in a store that bore his name. The district manager had approved a week-long training period for Greg, not knowing the CEO himself was behind the alias. But the deeper Graham went, the worse things looked. 2 employees had quit within a week, one to return to school, another lured away by better pay. The general manager, Kyle, hadn't replaced either of them. "We'll manage," he'd said, but managing, it turned out, meant stretching overworked employees to their limits and plugging the gaps with short-term hires, hoping no one noticed the cracks widening. From the moment Graham stepped onto the floor, the dysfunction was obvious. "Greg, take register, and don't screw it up," a sharp voice barked from the back. That was Kyle, mid-30s, buzz-cut, eyes full of irritation. Graham had watched him from the break room earlier. The kind of manager who vanishes when the line stretches and only reappears when there's someone to blame. He didn't lead, he dictated. His presence poisoned the air around him. "Got it," Graham replied calmly, stepping up to the register. Jenna, a young woman manning Register 1, glanced over and leaned toward him. "Don't take it personally. He's like that with everyone." The way she said it, soft but worn, cut deeper than any insult. Graham could feel it. The fatigue, the quiet resignation in her voice. She wasn't just surviving a job. She was carrying it. By noon, the line was relentless. Jenna worked with speed and grace, handling each customer with composure even as the pressure rose. Graham, still learning the system, moved slower. His fingers hesitated on the touchscreen. A middle-aged man at the front of the line huffed loudly. "Come on, buddy, it's just a sandwich." Graham offered a polite apology and completed the order. As he handed over the receipt, the back door slammed open with a jarring bang. The sound wasn't just loud, it was foreboding. "You've gotta be kidding me." Kyle's voice exploded across the room. Graham turned, startled, as Kyle stormed forward, face flushed with rage. "You've been on that register for 45 minutes and you're still moving like a snail. You trying to tank the pace on purpose?" "I just started today," Graham replied, voice even, posture steady. Kyle didn't care. "I don't give a damn if you started 5 minutes ago or 5 hours ago," he spat. "We don't have time for screw-ups." Right then, it became unmistakably clear this wasn't about systems or staffing. It was about a toxic leader at the center of it all. Kyle wasn't just impatient, he was destructive, and his unchecked aggression had become the store's silent rot. The room froze. Jenna stopped mid-step, a drink tray still in her hands. A customer across the room stared, mouth slightly agape. No one dared move. Before Graham could speak, Kyle turned his fury toward Jenna. "And you, why didn't you tell him to pick up the pace?" Jenna dropped her gaze instantly, cheeks flushed. Not with embarrassment, but with something deeper, quiet humiliation. Her shoulders drew inward like she'd been hit. Something in Graham's chest clenched. It wasn't the anger that hit him first. It was sorrow. He hadn't come expecting excellence, but watching a manager publicly belittle a young woman doing her best. It wasn't just poor leadership. It was cruelty. "Hey," Graham said firmly, his voice low but cutting through the silence like a bell. "You don't speak to people like that, especially not in front of customers. That's not how you lead a team." Kyle snapped his head toward him, eyes blazing. "You giving me a lecture now, rookie?" Graham stepped out from behind the counter. He reached for the name tag on his chest, pulled it off, and held it in his hand. His eyes locked with Kyle's. Steady, unblinking. "I'm not Greg," he said clearly. "My name is Graham Fletcher. I own this company." The silence that followed was suffocating. Jenna stared, her lips parted in shock. A customer dropped a French fry. Kyle blinked, as if someone had hit him square in the chest. Reality had landed, and it was wearing sneakers and a faded polo shirt. "You're... what now?" Kyle stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. Graham didn't need to raise his voice. He just told the truth. "I came here to see why this location was underperforming. Now I know." Kyle opened his mouth to respond, but the words never came. "You just screamed at a new hire in front of over a dozen customers, then turned around and humiliated a cashier who's been holding this place together better than you ever did. You have 2 minutes to step into the office before I make a final decision about your job." Jenna took a small step back, visibly stunned. Graham caught her eye for a second, then turned toward the break room. "Now, Kyle." Kyle stood frozen for a moment, his face pale, bloodless. Then, without another word, he walked toward the office and disappeared inside. Graham turned back to the remaining staff and the stunned customers. "We'll be right back. Thanks for your patience." He followed Kyle and closed the office door quietly behind him. This was where the real conversation would begin. Kyle stood by the office window, arms tightly crossed, like he was still clinging to control of something long lost. His lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. The silence hung heavy between them, like a verdict waiting to be delivered. Graham let it stretch. "You want to explain what that outburst was all about?" he asked finally. "I was managing the floor," Kyle replied, his tone sharp and defensive. "That wasn't management, that was intimidation," Graham said, stepping closer. "You berated a brand new hire in front of customers, then publicly humiliated a young woman who was doing her best to hold things together." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "I've been running this store for over 2 years. I know what it takes to keep it from falling apart. You think I like working with temps who don't know what they're doing? And you think yelling at them fixes it?" Graham's voice lowered but gained weight. "A good manager trains people, builds them up. If someone's falling behind, you coach them. You don't tear them down in front of a crowd." Kyle stayed quiet. No denial, no apology either. "I looked at your staffing logs before I came here. This store has been understaffed for 3 straight weeks. No new hiring requests, training hours cut. You've been operating with 2 full-timers and a revolving door of temps. That's not just poor management, that's abandonment." Kyle stammered. "I wasn't given the budget." "You had the budget," Graham interrupted. "I approved it, personally. You didn't file the paperwork. You left your team out to dry. No one wants to work hard anymore, Kyle muttered bitterly. They come in lazy, leave the same way. Graham's eyes didn't flinch. That's because you've created an environment no one wants to stay in, and that is on you. Kyle shifted his weight, avoiding eye contact. So, are you firing me? I think you already know the answer, Graham said. You treat people like they're disposable. You disappear when it gets busy. You cut corners, then blame everyone else when it backfires. Why would I keep someone like that? There was no answer, and Graham didn't need one. You're relieved of your duties effective immediately. Gather your things and exit through the back. HR will send you the termination paperwork via email. Kyle's expression hardened, but he didn't argue. He walked out without another word, passing through the kitchen. A few employees glanced up as he passed, but no one spoke. No one stopped him. The back door shut behind him with a soft but final thud, a quiet period ending an era that had gone on too long. Graham stepped back out to the front. Jenna was ringing up a customer, her face pale but steady. The rest of the team worked cautiously, keeping their focus as best they could. When the last customer left just before closing, Graham walked over to Jenna. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, then hesitated. "Honestly, I'm not sure. That was the first time anyone stood up to him." Graham nodded toward the side of the counter. "Take 5. It's just the 3 of us now. I'll cover your station." She looked at him, uncertain. "Really?" He gave her a soft smile. "Really, go." Jenna quietly walked toward the break room, glancing back once before closing the door behind her. Graham logged into the register system. A customer approached, offering a tentative smile. "Welcome," Graham said. "What can I get started for you?" The customer ordered a salad. Graham moved through the POS system with practiced ease. It had been over a year since he'd last used it, but the muscle memory hadn't left. His rhythm wasn't fast, but it was steady. 10 minutes later, Jenna returned, silent but composed, and resumed her position without a word. Graham stepped away and made his way to the back. At the grill, a young man named Archer was working with quiet intensity, focused, precise. Every flip of a patty, every press of a wrap, deliberate and clean. Next to him stood Kayla, a teenager managing the topping station. She moved quickly, but her eyes flicked nervously between orders, betraying her inexperience. "Kayla," Graham approached gently. "How long have you been working here?" 2 months. "Did anyone train you formally?" She shook her head. "No, I just watched Archer and tried not to mess anything up." Graham watched her assemble a burrito. She reached for the wrong sauce bottle, not realizing the mistake. "That one's not the right one," he said kindly. "Oh, sorry," she quickly corrected herself. "You're doing fine, but you shouldn't have to learn this way." Archer didn't look up but spoke calmly. "She picks things up fast. She just needs more time." Graham nodded. "Starting tomorrow, I'll take over training. No more guesswork." He moved down the line, checking the prep bins. Several were nearly empty. The lettuce was limp. The guacamole had turned gray at the edges. "Who's been managing inventory?" he asked. "Kyle used to," Archer replied, then fell silent. Graham opened the cooler. Meat was stacked haphazardly. Labels were incorrect. Some had expired 2 days ago. He shut the door quietly. "We're going to fix all of it." Archer nodded. "You staying around?" Graham didn't answer right away. The dinner rush was building, but this time he wasn't watching from a distance. He rolled up his sleeves, wiped down tables, ran food, and bit by bit, he wasn't just fixing a broken store. He was healing a culture that had been left to decay for far too long. Most of the customers were patient. A few slipped out quietly. Some left subtle complaints about the wait times, but not one person walked out in anger. By 8 p.m., with the last guest gone, the team began the nightly cleanup. Jenna swept behind the counter. Kayla meticulously wiped down the topping station. Archer sanitized the grill. Graham called the team together near the front. The rebuild had begun. "I know today was full of surprises," Graham began. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. "But I've seen everything I needed to see. You've all kept this store running on half the staff and double the pressure, and somehow you've held it together. You didn't let it collapse. Starting today, that ends." No one spoke, but the silence wasn't empty. It was full of the kind of emotion that had been waiting too long to be acknowledged. A quiet release, like someone had finally pulled the pin on a pressure valve no one knew how to reach. "Tomorrow we're bringing in a temporary GM from the corporate office. We'll begin hiring for the permanent role next week, but from now on, you're going to get the support you deserve." He looked each of them in the eye, slowly, deliberately. "I'm approving overtime and hazard pay, new training schedules, inventory control procedures, and a real push for staffing. All of it starts today." Kayla looked up from the prep line and hesitated. "Can we ask for more help? Like, actually hire?" Graham nodded. "Not only can you, I want you to. Start asking tonight." Archer wiped his hands on a worn kitchen towel, gave a quiet nod. "You sticking around?" "I'll be here through the weekend," Graham replied. "After that I'll rotate through the other locations. But this store? It's getting a full audit." Jenna stepped forward slightly, her voice low but clear. "Why this store?" "I read the complaints," Grant said. "But I didn't understand them until I stood here and saw what you were all dealing with. You deserve better leadership, and I didn't give you that. That's on me." Jenna gave a soft nod, her face unreadable, but her posture just slightly eased. Graham turned his gaze back to the team. "You all deserve a leader who shows up when it matters. That's the new standard." There was no applause, no cheering, just a deep shift in the air, an emotional current moving beneath the surface. Gratitude wasn't the emotion that hung there. It was something more fundamental. Trust, beginning to breathe again. The next morning, Graham entered through the side door wearing the same clothes from the day before. There was no name tag this time. There didn't need to be. Everyone already knew who he was now. He stepped through the prep area and found Archer slicing onions with steady rhythm. The man nodded silently, never pausing his knife. Jenna walked in through the front, tying her apron in one practiced motion. "You're early," she said. "So are you." "Didn't sleep much." "Same." There was no need to fill the space with idle talk. Graham appreciated that about her. Quiet, focused, efficient. She wasn't looking to impress. She was looking to get the work done right. He spent the first hour going over delivery logs, checking the previous day's discrepancies. The produce truck arrived late again. Graham didn't wait. He called the supplier directly and had the delivery policy rewritten. From now on, every drop-off would require a signature. No more crates left sitting on the sidewalk like forgotten baggage. Just before noon, Leela Tran arrived, Graham's most trusted leader from corporate. Sharp mind, calm energy. She didn't walk in with a clipboard and a list of orders. She observed first, then moved. A who's who of operations, Graham often called her. She didn't need to say much to change the course of a store. As she watched the line, she noticed Kayla fumbling with the sauce bottles again. "Who preps the sauces?" Leela asked. Kayla looked up, sheepishly. "I just refill them. I don't mix them. Sometimes Archer does, sometimes no one does." Leela turned to Graham. "That's a gap." "I know. I'll work with Archer to assign prep duties. You handle the recipe sheets." By lunch rush, the flow of customers was steady, not overwhelming, but cracks were showing. Kayla hesitated at complicated orders. Jenna moved faster than she should have had to, covering gaps left by others. Archer had to step in several times to clear bottlenecks. Graham didn't say a word. He just jumped in, wiping trays, delivering food, restocking sauces. A few customers recognized him from the day before, but no one said anything. Then a woman in a fitted business dress approached the counter, visibly irritated. I ordered the chicken wrap without onions. There are onions. Jenna stepped forward. I'll remake it right away. The woman scowled. I don't want someone remaking it if they couldn't get it right the first time. Before Jenna could respond, Graham stepped beside her. I'll make it myself, he said, and I'll add a free drink for the inconvenience. The woman gave him a once-over. Are you the manager? I'm the owner. Her demeanor shifted instantly. Oh, I didn't realize. Everyone here deserves respect, Graham said firmly, no matter their title. The woman nodded stiffly, muttered a thank you, and stepped aside. Graham remade the wrap, handed it off, then returned to the line. Jenna said nothing, but her shoulders fell just a little, like she finally had space to breathe. Later that afternoon, Graham pulled Archer aside into the dry storage room. You've been holding this place together, he said. Archer raised an eyebrow. Just doing my job. No, you've been doing more than that. Training people. Fixing issues. Holding standards. I looked at your file last night. You've been here 6 years. 7 in October. Why haven't you ever applied for management? Archer leaned back against a shelf, arms crossed. Kyle did the hiring, and I was never his pick. What about now? You interested? Archer didn't hesitate. If it means we stop putting out fires all day. Yeah, Leela will walk you through the process. Starting tomorrow, you'll serve as acting assistant manager. Archer nodded slowly. Appreciate that. That night, Graham stayed through closing. Leela sat at a booth with the closing staff, speaking clearly and deliberately. We're implementing task checklists and shift assignments. Archer will oversee execution. Jenna, you're being promoted to lead cashier. Jenna blinked, stunned. Why? Because you've been doing that job, without the title or the pay. Now you'll have both. Kayla raised her hand hesitantly. What if we mess things up? You will, Leela replied without smiling. That's how you learn. But now, you'll have structure and support. The meeting ended quietly. Graham walked Leela out to her car. You handled that well, he said. They're a smart group, she replied. Just exhausted. I saw that too. I'm not expecting a miracle in a week. They don't need a miracle, Leela said. They just need to know someone's finally listening. She drove off, headlights fading into the dark. Graham stayed for a moment longer, standing in the quiet parking lot. He wasn't used to being this close to the ground anymore. But for the first time in years, it felt right. The next morning, a new hire showed up. Malik, 18. Quiet, polite, jeans crisp, hoodie black and clean. Jenna's cousin had recommended him. Ram met him at the back door. First day? Yes, sir. Come on in. He handed Malik off to Archer to start training. Another beginning. And this time, they'd do it the right way. Come on in, Graham said. He handed Malik off to Archer for training. Jenna helped him learn the register. Kayla walked him through how to check the topping bins. No one yelled, no one rolled their eyes. By midday, Malik was already taking simple orders. He fumbled a few times, missed a button, misread a ticket, but every time, someone stepped in calmly, without judgment. Graham watched from the sidelines, arms crossed. He didn't interfere. He didn't need to. His eyes said it all. Pride. That afternoon, a new applicant came in for an interview. Kayla had posted the job opening on her college group chat. The girl's name was Sam, around 20, with bright blue-dyed hair, a crisp button-up shirt, and a lanyard full of quirky enamel pins. Graham greeted her at the front. "You here for the cashier role?" "Yes, I'm Sam." "All right, this way." Leela conducted the interview. Sam was hired on the spot. She'd worked at a local bookstore but had recently lost hours due to budget cuts. She'd start on Monday. That night, before closing, Graham pulled Jenna aside. "You're not just serving customers anymore," he said gently. She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "You referred someone new you've been helping train. Keeping the floor together when everything's barely holding on. That's leadership." "I don't know if I'd call it that." "I would, and we need more of it, so keep going." Jenna nodded slowly. The corner of her mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but something warm and real. A breath released from somewhere deep inside her that had been held too long. In the days that followed, the store didn't transform overnight. Orders still got mixed up, lines still backed up, but the air had changed. There was less fear, less tension. On Sunday night, Graham stood outside the store with Archer and Leela. Inside, the lights were dimmed, the lobby was spotless, the prep bins fully stocked. Leela crossed her arms. "We've got a long way to go." Archer nodded. "But we've started." Graham looked at the building, the same one he had driven past dozens of times without ever stopping. Now he knew every inch of it. "This won't be the last time I show up," he said. "Not just here. All of them." "Then don't wait until things fall apart again," Leela replied. "Show up when they're running right, too." Graham turned to Archer. "You ready to run this place?" Archer didn't flinch. "I've been ready." "Then do it." They didn't shake hands or make speeches. They just turned and walked toward their cars. 3 people under a quiet night sky who, if nothing else, had faced the truth and acted on it. "The inventory sheet from this morning still has a couple of discrepancies," Leela said, flipping to a marked page in her binder. "You recorded 6 trays of marinated chicken, but the prep log only shows 4 were used." "I held 2 back," Archer replied, calm and unbothered. "They were hovering near the temp threshold. I didn't want to risk it." She nodded. "Smart call, but log it next time. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist." "Should I start tracking temperature issues, too?" "Yes, every single one. I'll get you a binder for that." She turned to leave, but Archer called out after her. "You think this place is fixable?" Leela paused in the doorway, still facing forward. "It already is. But it's going to get harder before it gets easier." Out front, Jenna was wiping down the POS terminal when a crash rang out across the dining room. Malik had dropped a tray of drinks near the soda fountain. Ice and soda exploded across the tile floor. Several customers turned. Malik froze, lips parted. I'm sorry." Jenna didn't even look up. She dropped to a crouch and started cleaning. "Grab the mop. It's just soda." He scrambled for the mop. As they wiped the floor together, he glanced over, eyes still wide. "You ever mess up like that?" "Plenty," she said with a grin. "Last year I dumped an entire bin of salsa on a customer's brand new sneakers." Malik laughed under his breath. "Did they complain?" They walked out with a free meal and a ruined pair of Nikes. As they tossed the last towel into the bin, Malik hesitated. "Thanks for not making it a thing." "No one here's perfect," Jenna said. "Just learn from it." In the back office, Graham sat with Sam, who had just finished her onboarding paperwork. Her voice was composed and confident, not easily impressed. "You've worked food service before?" he asked. 2 years. Vegan cafe, closed down last fall. "Julie here. It's walking distance. I need the hours, and I'd rather stand all day than stare at another job search portal." Graham smiled. "You'll start on the topping line. Kayla will guide you. I watched her this morning. I've got the basics." "She's good. I just want one thing. No drama. I've had enough of that. You'll get clarity. The drama's being cleared out. That evening, the dinner rush peaked around 6:30. Jenna held Register 1, Malik covered Register 2, Kayla and Sam worked the line. Archer moved constantly between the grill and expo. Graham stood by the entrance, handing out menus, smoothing the flow. A man in a dark blazer approached the counter, tapping his phone with increasing impatience. "Hi there," Malik said with quiet politeness. "Pickup order?" "Hey, it's 10 minutes late." Malik scanned the system. "Name's Ryland? 2 chicken bowls, extra avocado?" The screen showed the order still in prep. Archer was plating the first bowl, but the avocado bin was empty. Malik turned to Kayla. "We're out. We went through the last batch an hour ago. No one said anything about starting more." Graham stepped behind the counter, popped open the topping lid and saw the remaining avocado had turned brown. He grabbed a knife and a fresh crate from the cooler. "Give me 5 minutes," he told Malik. "Let the customer know we're prepping a new batch." But Ryland had already stepped up, arms crossed. "This is ridiculous. I paid extra for something you didn't even have ready." Malik opened his mouth, unsure. Jenna was already at his side. "We're remaking the avocado fresh," she said evenly. "It'll be ready in just a few minutes. We'll comp a dessert item for the delay." "I don't want dessert." "Then I'll refund the avocado." The man glanced at her, then toward Graham behind the line. "This how you run a business?" Graham looked up from the cutting board, avocado in hand. "We're not perfect, but we're fixing what wasn't working. Maybe I'll take my business somewhere else." "You're free to," Graham said. "But you'll still get your bowl. And your refund." Ryland fell quiet. Jenna processed the refund and handed him the receipt. Graham sliced steadily, unfazed. The store wasn't flawless, not yet. But it was finally honest. "This is unbelievable. I paid extra for something you didn't even have ready." Malik opened his mouth to respond, but Jenna was already beside him, steady, composed. "We're making a fresh batch of avocado now," she said, her tone calm but firm. "It'll be ready in just a few minutes. In the meantime, you're welcome to a complimentary dessert." "I don't want dessert," Ryland snapped. "Then we'll refund the avocado charge," she said, without missing a beat. Ryland looked at her for a long second, then glanced past her, toward Graham, who was behind the counter, sleeves rolled, slicing a new tray of avocados with clinical precision. "This how you people run a business?" Graham looked up briefly, a slice of avocado in one hand. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "We're not perfect," he said, "but we're fixing what got left broken. Maybe I'll take my business somewhere else." "You're free to," Graham replied simply, "but you'll still get your bowl and your refund." Ryland didn't respond. He didn't have to. Jenna processed the refund without another word. Graham returned to the avocado, his hands steady, focused. Sometimes leadership isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet resolve, practiced under pressure. As the evening rush started to thin, Leela motioned for Graham to join her in the back hallway. Her expression was composed, but the weight of the day clung to her words. "We've stabilized," she said, "but there's still tension." She didn't need to elaborate. He already knew. Malik's too green for peak hours. Kayla's holding up, but barely. She's burning out. Jenna, she's practically running this store on her own. "We're not hiring fast enough," Graham admitted. "No, but that's not all," Leela continued. "Some of them are already stepping into roles way beyond what they were hired for." "You're saying promote?" "I'm saying recognize what's already happening." Later that night, Graham gathered the team after close. The doors were locked. No aprons, no trays, just people, worn but present, sitting in a loose circle in the dining area. It wasn't just a meeting. It was a moment. "This week's been a reset," he began, voice low but clear. but I want to talk about where we're going from here." The staff leaned in, tired eyes, but open. "Archer will officially be promoted to general manager next week. I've already cleared it with HR. New pay, full benefits, starts Monday." There was no applause. Archer didn't even flinch. He simply nodded, an acknowledgement, not of surprise, but of something long overdue. "Jenna," Graham continued, "you're being promoted to assistant manager. You'll start training with Leela tomorrow." Jenna blinked. I never applied." "You didn't have to," Graham said, meeting her gaze. "You've been doing the job this entire time." He turned to Kayla next. "You're now lead line trainer. Starting with Sam and Malik, you'll help onboard new hires. You've earned that trust." Kayla shifted, quietly tucking her hands under her legs, as if trying to contain the nerves and pride swelling all at once. "Yes, sir." He looked at Sam and Malik, both of whom sat straighter than before, eyes wide. "You two are on a path toward full-time roles, if you want it. We'll support you, but we'll also expect commitment. This store needs consistency. And people it can count on." They nodded almost in unison, not out of obligation, but belief. Graham let the moment hang. He wanted it to settle deep. "You've all been keeping this place running through pressure no one should have had to carry. That changes now. From here on out, you won't do it alone." Malik slowly raised his hand. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." "Are you gonna do this at the other stores too?" Graham didn't hesitate. "Yes, and I'll be there in person for every single one." No cheering, no back-patting, just quiet understanding. The team started putting away chairs. Slow, deliberate motions, like something broken starting to move again. Not quickly, but with intention, like the first creaks of an old engine turning over for the first time in a long while. As the lights dimmed and the lock clicked on the door behind them, Graham and Leela stepped out under the soft hume of the streetlights. The night was cool. "They're a good team," she said, fitted and renewed. "You think it'll stick?" "It has to. They'll still make mistakes." "So will I," he said, glancing upward toward the night sky. "But not the same ones." Leela studied his face for a moment, his posture, his resolve. "You're not going back to the office full-time, are you?" Graham didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice wasn't that of a CEO, but of a man who remembered where he came from. "No," he said softly. "I'm going back to work.